Well, I'm standing on the workbench again, so that means one thing. We're working on the backhoe. So, the other night I was backfilling our electrical trench, and I heard a big bang sound, and then the stick didn't work anymore, and instantly looked up and saw a broken rod on the hydraulic cylinder. So this will be my first time repairing the eye or welding on a hydraulic cylinder. We did already rebuild this cylinder in a previous video, and it has some interesting tidbits you might want to watch before you watch this video here. So one of the problems that we had while rebuilding the cylinder was this rod eye has a bushing that's walked out and basically locked this rod eye in place. Even when the pin's out, this won't move, and I think it's even bound up because I can't move it without a bar. So what we're going to have to do here, I think, is take a grinder with the cutoff wheel and cut the bushing out after we pull the pin out. And we'll just have to cut it out, and hopefully we will relieve some of the stress enough so that the rod eye can slide over and come out. I'll eventually have to replace these bushings, but they are a couple weeks out, or a long wait time, and I don't want to wait that long, so we'll have to figure out something. We'll probably just put the cut bushing, or leave the portion of the bushing that is undamaged in the rod eye, and we'll just roll with that for now. This rod eye has been repaired before. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of welding on the outside of the rod eye, and on the inside it's really terrible quality welds. It looks like someone stuck bubble gum in here and then welded over top of it. Especially on the eye itself there, it's really bad. So we're going to have to grind a whole bunch out in order to get a good weld. But we need to get this rod eye out because I need to be able to stick this on, tack it in place in 3 spots, and then grind out everything so I have fresh steel that I'm going to be welding to. But I also need to be able to rotate the whole rod eye so I'm welding in position the whole way around, so I'm not welding upside down. So I think that's what they did here. They didn't want to fight this bushing, so they welded it in place and just piled weld upon weld upon weld until they thought it would hold. Which I guess it did hold for quite a while, but there's weld slag that fell down the boom here that I've seen and stuff like that. So first step that we're going to do here is pull this pin out, and as soon as we get the pin out, then we can try to, I'm hoping that for some reason that bushing is moved a little bit so we can actually get it free without using the grinder, but I'm afraid we'll have to grind it. So okay, now that we have the pin out, I'm going to clean as much of the grease out of the pin bore as I can. It has, in between the 2 bushings, there's a gap where grease normally sits. So there's about a 1/4 inch of grease all the way around that I don't want to catch fire or burn or anything like that. Okay, to avoid having a fire in this boom, because it has a telescopic boom, so it has grease and all sorts of stuff and a hydraulic cylinder within the boom here, I'm going to pack as much of this fiberglass pipe wrap into the crevices and the nooks and crannies and all that of this boom. So when I'm cutting up here, I'm not throwing sparks right down the boom. And the reason I'm doing this fiberglass is most fiberglass is flame resistant, or it doesn't burn at all, basically. And you can use it if you're trying to do something sketchy like cutting next to like a fuel tank or something you don't want to burn. You can pack this in there and it will trap all the sparks and let them cool off without endangering anything. Okay, I've crammed as much of that fiberglass in around the cylinder as I can. I have some down here too, so that should keep anything like hot slag or sparks from falling down behind this or down the boom. So should work. Next step is to cut this bearing out. I don't even think I'm going to try to pound it on it at all. See, it's tough to see here, but this bearing is touching right here like right in this race here. There's no way to even get a tool on there to pound the bearing back over, and that is a press fit, or it should be. So we're just going to cut it for now, and I'll probably end up ordering the correct bearing to replace that inner bearing there once we're done, and I want another project, I guess. So figured I should probably clarify that the reason why I'm grinding this bushing out is that they're extremely hard. Like a saw blade from like a Sawzall or anything like that, even if it's a metal blade, it won't even scratch it. It's going to be very hard material. It's meant to not wear out and let the pins wear out, so you can just replace pins when they wear out, but this bushing material is incredibly hard. Hey, it worked. There we go, that's what we're cutting off. Okay, this is the piece that was holding the rod eye in. Yeah, we'll probably have to replace it. That's a lot of the bearing area that we're taking away from the rod when it's pushing on stuff. The other part of this bearing will be under a lot of load now. But we'll be able to run it for a little while like this. So as you can see, the fiberglass caught all the sparks, and when I'm working you'll see them just land in this and then slowly burn out. So it did its job. Now I can pull all this packing out. We'll end up just covering this whole knuckle area when we're welding on the cylinder. Because the next step is to, I'll probably pre-grind some of this, but we'll tack weld in 3 spots or so, wherever it fits nice. We'll weld up partially, then we'll have to grind out where we tacked, grind that down, and we'll build it all the way up, all the way around. So I don't have enough daylight to do all that tonight, so I'm probably just going to clean up and get ready to do that tomorrow. Okay, I have the rod ground and the eye ground. It took quite a bit of work. I left 3 points of reference. This one is the center point. I'll start welding around that. I don't think having that as original will be a problem. As soon as we have it welded up the way I want it, I'll grind these 2 tabs off and then we can weld it solid. I hope this repair works well. I'll probably tack weld it up, and then I might go through the effort of putting the pin in and just making sure everything lines up good. And then after that, we will be able to weld it solid. So let's get started. So my original plan was just to hold the rod eye up against the cylinder and tack it in place using my little locating spots that I didn't grind. But I just wasn't happy with how it was lining up, and I couldn't get it to be accurate enough. So I decided just to put the rod eye back into the pin bore with the pin and then hold everything in place using the hydraulic cylinder. I was much happier with that, and I think everything lined up much better that way. Well, it's all welded up now. It took about 5 pounds of welding rod. I was using 70-14 at the beginning and then switched over to 70-18 because I just couldn't get the 70-14 to run right. But it's not pretty, but I think it will work. As soon as I'm done with supper, I'm going to come out here, lower this down and put the pin in. That way as it cools, it will not warp. So, almost done. So last night, the last thing you saw was us welding up the cylinder, and then I think the camera died before Emily was able to help me get the pin put back in the cylinder or into the rod eye so it could cool overnight. And thankfully nothing had warped. The pin slid right in, and I've had no issue putting the pin in a couple times after that. So today what I did was I pulled it back out, I cleaned it really good, degreased everything, got all the grit out of everything, and then put it all back together. Unfortunately, there were 3 washers here, and I was going to have a smart idea of putting one on this side of the rod eye, just to take up some of the slack, and because this side was the one that the bushing walked out before. But while I was doing that, I accidentally dropped it, and it slid all the way down the inner boom, all the way down, and is sitting right about here, which is basically impossible to get until I pulled this boom apart to do a rebuild on it. So hopefully that doesn't cause any problems. I didn't film much of today because we have the generators going because it is 95 degrees here today and very hot, so we need the air conditioning. Hopefully power is installed later this week. I hope it's going to be in the hundreds this week, so hopefully that's done. But our next job here is to go get some water from down below, which you'll see in another video. So a couple things about the welding here. Yes, it's crude. Yes, I should have been wrapping it around and spinning the cylinder as I went. But because I didn't want to take this whole cylinder off, I could only rotate it manually, and stick welding while rotating this thing would have been pretty hard to do. So the inside part of the welding, the core, what I started with, that was 70/14, and that was 1/8 inch rod. But I run the welder currently off a generator, and it doesn't like 1/8 inch rod very much. I don't think I was getting enough heat with the 70/14 to really have a nice puddle that melted. It seemed to just build up and not really get good penetration, even if I cranked up the amperage as much as I could. So about halfway through I switched to 70/18 but 3/32 rod, which are a little bit smaller. It took a lot more rods to burn it all in, but I think I got a better result. I'm really happy with how it tied into the rod material and to the casting of the eye of the rod. I think that's a nice strong weld. I did clean up all of my weld spatter and any sharp things up to the edge of my weld here. It's very close. I'm not super happy with how it turned out that way, but I was basically just working right up to where the previous person welded, so hopefully this wiper seal stays in good condition. I think I welded the eye pretty good because it is sitting at the center point of the arm, and it doesn't look like it's binding or anything funny. The top of the rod is shifted over a little bit, but yeah, and I can't move that, so yeah, I think I got this temporary fix to work. I'll be testing it out, and I'll have an update video if something breaks, but hopefully you don't see anything, and that means the weld was good. Eventually I need to do some major repairs to the stick here, because this plate on the other side here, opposite this side of the pin, is really bent up and warped. Let me show you. So the previous owner had an issue where I think this pin walked out, and it tipped, and the pin walked out this way and caught and bent this whole ear. So this isn't in alignment, which forces all of this assembly out of alignment. And they just welded a pin in there. It's the sloppiest of my pins. Unfortunately, I think what I have to do is pull or cut this piece off, put a new one on, basically pound out, and then you'd have to put a new boss here, and then a new bushing, but you have to push the bushing out on that side, and then line bore this, and then put the bushings in. So that's going to probably be above my expertise level. Line boring is extremely challenging, and I'll probably would have to, hopefully the bushings on the boom here are still good, and I would just have to put new bushings in and a new pin when I'm done. But if that's all eaten out of this one, then I'll have to line bore this also. So it's a pretty big project. I think this one was good. I'll just put new bushings in here, and then I'd actually end up replacing this rod, because I don't really trust this, and I don't think everything's perfectly in alignment, and it's going to wear funny and kick bushings out and break pins and stuff like that. So yeah, my goal will be to get this replaced. I think you can get one for under $1,000 for just the rod, so we'll see. So this was an unexpected repair, and it came at a pretty bad time. I really need to get the electrical conduit buried. That way when the power company comes, it's all buried and ready to go for them. So that'll be the next big project we're going to be working on, is finishing that up. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is just to hit that like button. It really helps out. If you want to support the channel in a more direct way, the best way to do that right now is through our YouTube channel memberships. If that's not your thing, I completely understand. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.